Everyone, this is Pete Lackey for the Bible Minute. We're going to go ahead and jump back to the book of Proverbs in chapter 9 because we have an individual that's been introduced that we've heard from before. The Bible calls him a scoffer, or some translations will say a mocker. So let's go ahead and read the verse. Proverbs 9, 7 through 9 says this: One who corrects a scoffer gets dishonor for himself, and one who corrects a wicked person gets insults for himself. Do not rebuke a scoffer, or he will hate you. Rebuke a wise person, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise person, he'll become still wiser. Teach a righteous person, and he will increase in his insight. So you see this contrast between a scoffer and a wise person. A wise person is teachable. Therefore, they are reachable by the Spirit of God and reachable from others who want to give them wise counsel. A scoffer is unteachable and thus unreachable through the Spirit of God and unreachable by another person who may be wise to provide advice. Remember, I talked to you about three types of persons that are addressed in the books of Proverbs. Proverbs talked about the naive, the fool, and the scoffer. And I put it as kind of like a process, right? You can start off as naive. Now, a naive person is someone who just doesn't know. They're simple-minded. The Bible translates it simple sometimes. So someone who's kind of simple-minded, that they're still open to be taught, but knowledge kind of gets a little blurry for them. So someone who's very young is naive, we like to say, right? Then you also have a fool. A fool is someone who lacks moral deficiency, literally someone who doesn't think. So they're not thinking, they're kind of just running around with their passions, just acting like a fool. Well, a fool can quickly become a scoffer. Now, a scoffer, a mocker or scorner are the words that are used in English to translate that Hebrew root word, which literally means to make a mouth at. So it's someone who's running their mouth arrogantly, boastful, and they just cannot be taught. Another proverb says, he who speaks before listening, that is his folly and his shame. Well, a scoffer likes to talk with his mouth open. Some have said that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. Well, a scoffer, forget about it. Well, a scoffer can be described as someone who's arrogant and boastful. They're argumentative, contentious, they're haughty. You see that word. They puff themselves up with their insolent pride. And here's how the Proverbs describes them in a few other places. So Proverbs 21:24 says, proud, haughty, scoffer are his names, who acts with insolent pride. Proverbs 15:12 says, a scoffer does not love one who reproves him. He will not go to the wise. So he's so arrogant, he doesn't even go to someone who's wise to learn. Proverbs 22:10, drive out the scoffer and contention will go out. Even strife and dishonor will cease. The Bible's telling you that the scoffer causes problems, causes trouble. Drive them out of the situation and you end up having a little bit of more peace. Proverbs 24:9, the devising of folly is sin, and the scoffer is an abomination to men. And Proverbs 13:1 gives us something very disappointing for us parents out there. Sometimes our own son and daughter can be a scoffer. A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. So what is the solution for a scoffer? Well, God's going to have to break him or her down. And friends, it'll be painful, I promise you. Proverbs 29:1 says this: a man who hardens his neck after much reproof will suddenly be broken beyond remedy. So unteachable, been reproved many times, and they just won't listen to discipline. They just don't care. Well, friends, they're going to be broken down. Well, what's the solution? Well, first of all, if we've learned anything from the wars in the Middle East between the United States and its enemies, is that if you win the air war, it makes it a lot easier when the ground troops go in. You got to look at that spiritually as well. Prayer is your air war. So you get a picture when you're praying for somebody that you are literally, every word's a bomb. It's just hitting that hard in that target and softening that target, ready for when a wise man or wise woman will come into their path. And I'd be praying for wise men or wise women to come into their path as the ground troops. But I like to do it this way. I give a visual in my book where I have a chair, like picture an empty chair next to you, and then have an arrow drawn from that chair to you. The scoffer's in that chair, and you're praying. You're trying to really feel, this is intercessory prayer. You're trying to really feel what's going on in a scoffer's heart. You're thinking, God, what is making that person's heart so hard? What must they have gone through? Who hardened them in their life? Was it a parent? What was their childhood like? You're really trying to pull that in. Was there something that happened to them? What do they think about when they're lying in their bed, Lord? When they are away from us after scoffing, Lord? When there's loneliness that kicks in, maybe anxiety and depression and all those things. Well, that does two things. Number one, it's changing your heart towards a scoffer. Because let's just admit it. In our flesh, we don't like them. We don't want to be around a scoffer. And it can stir up a little disdain for them in your heart as a person made in the image of God. I've had it. I have it all the time. But man, I find when I'm praying in that intercessory way, it's really helping me change my heart as I'm praying for God to change theirs. So then you draw the arrow from you to God. Like literally you're taking their burdens and you're lifting it up to God. And your faith and trust is that God in the air war is going to be pounding their heart and changing their heart. That's the only way to win a scoffer. Number two, do not engage in public debate. Just don't engage in public debate with them. Try to put them to the side. The Bible tells us this way in Proverbs 9, 7, 8. He who corrects a scoffer gets dishonor for himself, and he who reproves a wicked man gets insults for himself. Do not reprove a scoffer and he'll hate you. Reprove a wise man and he'll love you. Friends, you aren't winning their heart by arguing with them. In fact, they'll hate you for it because they're just not teachable, and thus they're not reachable from the truth. Matthew 7:6, Jesus puts it this way: do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before swine, or they'll trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces, friends. And that's the truth. So number one, pray for them. Number two, don't engage in public debate, whether it's on social media, to their face, or in a crowd or a group or anything like that. Try and pull them aside. If that's not working, just say, well, we're going to have to end this conversation. Number three, never get to this point yourself. Don't yourself become a scoffer. Proverbs 14:6 says this: a scoffer seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge is easy to the one who has understanding. Friends, it can be very stressful. If you become a scoffer, what will happen is when God rebukes you, when something hard hits and you have hard times, you'll seek wisdom, and it will be nowhere to be found. So friends, let's make sure that we deal with the scoffers in our life in a biblical way and not become one ourselves. This is Pete Lackey for the Bible Minute.